Welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for hanging with me on this Saturday. And I really want to talk about the specific bait you're throwing is very important this time of year. You go earlier into the year, typically you can catch bass on a couple different baits, especially when they stop biting. Pick up a different bait, throw it in there and catch them. This time of year, it seems like the bass aren't really hunkered down on a spot. They're on a spot because there's bait there, and they're going to eat all the bait that they can, and then they're going to leave. In the pre-spawn or in the spring or in the summer, you have bass that are there because of the bottom contours, whatever type of bottom composition, either they're spawning, they're using that to feed up for, the post-spawn, whatever it may be. But those bass are there not so much because of the bait. Obviously, they pick places that have bait, but they're there because of what's on the bottom. In the fall, they could care less about all that. They're there for the bait. And in the springtime, in the summertime, you have a full buffet. Everything is there. This time of year, the buffet is shrinking, and the fish know that, and that's kind of their temperament because they're going to eat everything they can, go somewhere else. In the springtime, they're feeding heavily, but they know there's an abundance, that they got everything on the menu and they can go back and eat and eat and eat, and other things are going to continue to show up. They're not really pressed. This time of the year they are. So I think for that reason, the specific bait you throw, very important. I've fished with a lot of co-anglers. I've fished as a co-angler, so I've gotten to be in the boat with a lot of different guys throwing a lot of different baits, and I've realized that in the spring and the summer, there's typically a couple different baits, safe to say, that you can catch a bass on. In the fall time, very specific, to the point where if you're swimming a jig and you're catching bass, that doesn't mean that a very similar profile, similar color, a bait that's mimicking the same forage is going to work. I've witnessed this rather a lot, where I'm catching them on a fluke and my co-angler's throwing a little swim bait, same size, same profile. Obviously the action's different, and I'm catching them and he's going, I'm going to catch one on this. He just keeps throwing it. I'm catching him every cast on the fluke, and he's throwing that and not getting bit at all. So very, very important to keep an open mind this time of year. If your partner's catching them on something, switch to that exact bait. Other times of the year, I don't like to do that. I like to be a little different. I like to be fishing baits that are in the same strike zone, but give the bass a different look for those bass that swim up to his and just barely hit it or don't bite it. I know that I'm showing them something completely different, in those bass that aren't interested in his will be interested in mine. But this time of year, it's different. I really feel like your exact bait is very important, and a lot of times it is water column, it is exactly where you're putting the bait. But with saying that, it seems like that if the water column is just off a little bit, there's something just a little bit about the action. No matter if you are giving them exactly what they're eating, but you're just putting it in the wrong place, or you're just working it not how the bass are used to. They're educated, they've seen a lot of baits, so they're really keyed in on what they're eating, and they know that there's no this forage there. We haven't seen a bluegill in 3 months. We haven't seen this in 4 months. So you can't bring in the bluegill imitator like you can in the spring, where the bass look around and they go, there's bluegill over there, there's crayfish on the bottom, that jig makes sense, that chatterbait makes sense, oh yeah, shad above our head, oh, spinnerbait comes over, that makes sense. This time of year, it's not totally like that. They have not witnessed all of those different things, and it's not this overwhelming amount of forage in their face. You have very small shad, you have just the small shad, nothing else. They're very keyed in, so they know everything about those small shad. And if your bait may be small, but it's not doing exactly what they're used to, they're not going to bite it. So this time of year, very important. Rig up the right bait, rig up a bunch of baits, and try a bunch of baits, because when you find that magic bait, and it's not always a little swim bait, it's not always a swim jig, sometimes it's a big topwater walking bait, and that's the only bait that they'll bite. So try a bunch of different baits. This is the time of year where when you start out on a lake, 12 rods, and then slowly bring them down. But it's all your favorite shallow water fishing baits. It's all your favorite baits that you throw in the pre-spawn, mix in a bunch of topwaters, mix in jerk baits, mix in all your shad imitators this time of year. Try that. Good luck to you guys, and I'll see you on the water.